Okay, so today we're going to be sewing buttons. Have you guys sewn a button before? No?
No.
Nope.
Nah.
Awesome. Okay, so first I'm going to just give you a little overview with pictures so that if you understand, you can go ahead and start, because I know some people maybe have already sewn a button before. So, step number 1, what you're going to do is line up your fabric and you're going to stick your needle underneath one side of the fabric. So like shirts, you have a little piece of fabric coming over and you don't want to go through both pieces of fabric.
Okay.
Otherwise, on the other side, you would see the threads. And we want to keep the threads hidden. So you're going to put it in between the two pieces of fabric and through one of the loops. And once it's through one of the loops, then you're going to cross over to the opposite hole and then wrap it around 3 times. After that,
Wrap it like through those 2 holes.
just through those first 2.
And this is diagonal or?
Right, it's diagonal.
Oh, okay.
Good question. And then on the next one, once you've gone through that 3rd time, you're going to come up through one of the other holes and then repeat that and wrap it through 3 times. And then once you have gone down the last time, you're going to bring it up and wrap it. There's going to be a little bit of the threads coming out. You're going to wrap it underneath the button 4 times to kind of strengthen it.
Okay.
And then, once you've wrapped it through, you're going to stick the needle through the fabric, just through a little piece that's still underneath the button. This looks like it's not quite underneath the button just because I had to draw it a little bit more out. But you're going to stick it through the fabric, and then you're going to do that on the same holes 3 times, and then tie a knot, and then cut your threads, and you're all done. So, those of you who already know how to do it can go ahead, and those who don't, I will give you some fabric and thread and I will show it to you. So, just hand this out. Okay, awesome. So the first thing you're going to do is take one end of your thread and put it through the eye of the needle. Halfway down. It's a little bit hard because the eye of the needle is pretty small.
I feel like a blind man.
Okay, and then once you have it through, you pull it to the middle, and then you tie a knot at the end. If you already know how to tie a knot, you can do one you're familiar with, but for the purposes of this class, what we do is you take the needle and you put it in, if you're right-handed, you put it in your left hand, and vice versa, and then you pull it all the way through until you're at the end of the threads. Bring the needle back to your fingers. Then wrap those threads around the needle 3 times. And hold it, so push it back into your fingers. And then you pull the needle all the way through until the end, and it creates a knot. I know that's probably a little bit confusing. I was confused when I learned that the first time.
I may need some assistance, teacher.
That is okay.
A little slow.
I'll do it again, a little bit slower.
Alright, perfect.
Okay, so you take your needle and put it in your hands, in your left hands, in between
Oh, my
your thumb
left hand.
and your index finger.
Okay.
And then pull it through until you're grabbing the very end of the threads.
Okay.
And then you just bring that needle back to where you had it before, in between those fingers.
Okay.
And then the threads that are closer to the end, you wrap those around 3 times.
Threads that are closer to the end.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm really confused.
Which end? The end that is the ends of the threads. So when you bring it back, you'll have these two that are closest to the actual needle,
Yeah.
and then these two that are closest to the end of the threads.
Okay, so this 2N thing right there. Okay.
And you
Alright.
take those ones, and then wrap it around the needle 3 times.
Okay.
And then you hold on to them,
Okay.
and then pull the needle through. Do you have a knot?
I do not have enough.
Okay,
It's-
Sam, if you can help him.
Great.
I think it's. Do that right.
Yeah. Where do I put it? Yeah.
Mine's too big, so I need 2 knots when I do it.
Anyway. So you have.
Okay, so you do the one that's closer and then. How big do you normally want your knot, teacher?
This.
Not too big.
And you go like that.
Okay. And then just pull. And that's it, curve. And the knot's supposed to be at the end of the thread, or?
Close to the end. It doesn't have to be the very end.
I think we did it, Sam.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay. So now we're going to go to step number 2 with your fabric.
Okay.
Okay, now you can fold one side over just a little bit to kind of get that feel for putting it at the end of a shirt.
Okay.
So you stick your button on top like that, holding it in place.
Okay.
And then you take the needle and you go in between the 2 pieces of fabric, up one of the needles, or sorry, one of the holes that is closest to the edge.
So which one of those pieces?
In between just one of them,
Just between one, because you want to keep the threads
hidden.
Got your back, bro.
That'd be kind of weird if you flipped your shirt over and you saw the threads that they used to make the button. So you just pick one of those and then pull it all the way through. Perfect. And then you notice that the knot that you made at the end stops it so the strings don't go all the way through.
Yes.
So then once it's through one of those, then you go to the hole on the opposite corner,
Yeah.
come through just one of the pieces of fabric, just that top piece again, and then pull.
Oh.
Perfect. And then
Yeah.
you see that, so where the spot that you first picked to go through, you're going to go through that area again really close to where you went through the first time. then you do that 3 times till the string goes over these 2 3 times.
Okay. That was the third. Be nice to have some scissors.
Mhm.
But I guess that's later.
Do you need any scissors?
Sure. That'd be great. Let's get rid of this excess string.
Okay, is everyone to that point?
You want some scissors, Isabel?
I'm good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so once you're on the opposite side of the fabric,
Okay.
you're going to go through either one of the other 2 holes that you haven't gone through yet.
Okay.
And then again, you go through the opposite corner hole.
Three times.
Mm-hmm.
And struggle.
Then when you're at that point, just look at me so I know we're ready to move on.
Well, I just went through both fabrics. On both sides.
Okay. So, close to where the center of that X is,
Okay.
you're going to come up through the fabric again, but don't go through one of the holes. So the needle is coming up in between the fabric and the button.
Oh, I went under the. Okay. Oh, there we go. Come on. That way.
Sweet. Okay, and the next what we're going to do is kind of reinforce the button and help it to go through the buttonhole easier by making what we call a shank.
Okay.
So a shank is just a bit of thread that makes the button come off the fabric just a little bit so that it's easier to go through and sit on top of the fabric so it's not like right up close to that other piece of fabric. So what we're going to do is wrap it around. Whoop, my thread needs to untangle. You're going to start wrapping it around. And what I like to do is hold my thumb out and then have it go around my thumb so it doesn't go all the way around the button quite yet. So you just have a little bit of the string left. I said earlier that you could just keep wrapping it around, but there's a stronger way to do it, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate right now.
Oh.
So as you bring your button around, it's going to go through that little opening that you left with your thumb.
This was the thumbs towards the end of the.
Nope, just towards the beginning, you just stick it out and then
Oh.
like that. Then you stick it through that hole you created with your thumb.
And so this is, you wrap it around 3 times and then go through?
Yeah, you're going to do this 3 times. You're going to go through it 3 times. Every time you go through, make sure you're tightening it.
Got it. So you like, so you open that. Now and then just, and then put it through there. I'm gonna just make sure to tighten it.
Like that.
I think so. And then you just do it a second time.
Uh-huh.
Around that. Yeah,
Sam,
I
you
think
were
so.
such a great help for Sean. I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Then once you have that done 3 times, we're gonna move on to the next step, which is enforcing it on the bottom.